When I saw Saiyaara, I think after a long time I felt so inspired. I was like, I want to make a love story. I don't think many mainstream actors want to take chances today. I don't think they want. I think the box office game has become too important.
Okay.
It's become too big in all their collective heads. Writing has been replaced by an algorithm, you know, and like creativity has been replaced by data. I do believe that a decade later, 2 decades later, we will reference JIGRA as something that broke ground. Something that Alia was brave to do, something that we were brave to produce and Vasan was brave to contribute and made so. I'm very proud of JIGRA. I don't know, somehow I don't know why directors like to take writing credit. I really don't understand it. It's like, what are you trying to do? Because you didn't write it. Suchin, when I look at some of the first seasons, couple of seasons, I'm horrified at what I've asked.
Oh.
I'm horrified at myself. I'm like, how did I get away with this?
Yeah. The streaming show is brought to you by MUBI, your one-stop shop for meaningful cinema from around the globe. You can try MUBI for free for 30 days by visiting mubi.com/thestreamingshow2025. Karan, it is bloody wonderful to have you here. Thank you for coming on the streaming show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
We are, of course, here at the lovely Orchid Hotel, and I wanted to have you here to get some perspective. You know, it just feels like the ground within the industry has been shifting so rapidly over the last few years. There's talk of, you know, theatrical, the footfalls, a disconnect with what audiences want. The streaming space seems to be contracting. And so I can't think of many people who can bring the perspective you can on that. And beyond that also, one thing I've always admired about you is you always seem to have your ear to the ground. You seem to be watching everything. You seem to really care about mainstream cinema. I remember interviews years ago where you were talking about Tamil, Telugu and Malayalam cinema before it became cool, before film bros made Malayalam cinema the entire personality. And it just seems that you still give a shit. And, you know, mainstream cinema coming out of India, wherever it's coming from, really excites you, and that gives you hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think that everyone believes that they have the answer. Like, so let me tell you, the popular belief was like, okay, the streaming platforms are a huge threat to cinema footfalls.
Yeah.
You know, like this has happened, and now there's a certain kind of audience that is not going to come and consume content theatrically because they're consuming so much digitally. Now, this was the theory till 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and we all believe that there is a certain audience that get films like Pink, Kapoor and Sons, Neerja, Piku, X amount of. There was a 70 to 80 crore club. Okay, let's call it, that was the club for like content-based cinema is what it's called.
Yeah.
Content-based cinema. Apparently other films have no content.
No content.
Only these films had content. Content-driven cinema has that 70 to 80 crore club, and now that's shrunk to 30 to 40 because that large 40 crore loss is now a streaming audience. Okay. All this is like what we're hearing. Then we're hearing like, oh, tentpole films from the South are so much more stronger than us, which is true. Technically, we're way ahead of the game, and they're like, oh, there is an exhaustion in a certain kind of cinema. Love stories are not working anymore.
Yeah.
So all this was told to us, and all this was understood as per academia, as per like everybody who is now. Then comes Saiyaara, okay, and everything changes.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a film with 2 newcomers, with a love story as its genre, like does a 22 crore day one. Suddenly, every logic, academia, information you have to trade goes out of the window, like literally. Now suddenly I'm hearing, oh, there's an exhaustion on streaming and people are going back to cinema halls. So basically, long story short, we did have a post-pandemic, I think there was like definitely a repercussion because people got used to a certain kind of living, and yes, there was definitely traffic that wasn't going into cinema halls. People wanted the experience of travel much more, so you know, travel industry was booming, all that happened, but I never ever believed that the energy in a cinema hall is ever going to be diminished, it's going to deplete, is ever going to kind of die out. It's not possible. Okay, certain genres, you know, that are meant for like viewing at home should not be experimented with in a cinema hall. Yeah. Films that, you know, like are intense human dramas that don't have theatrical scale or don't have any cinematicness to it, those films, for example, you can just take those straight to streaming, and you should be fine with that.
You feel there is no meaningful, sizable theatrical audience for that?
Yes, and but there are some films that you want to watch as a community. For example, a film that is riding high on music, even if it's a love story, you want to watch it in a packed auditorium of 300 people and sing along or tap along, and that is never going to change. Those feelings that give you a community feeling when you watch a film in a collective audience, could be even a horror film, for example, because everybody collectively gasps or gets scared or is at the edge of their seat. But for example, an intense, like with Kesari, we were really worried about it because it was a courtroom drama, and courtroom dramas are told and not. So we really were eventually very thrilled with its theatrical outcome, because we were told like courtroom dramas are a no-no. But now I know for a fact Jolly LLB will come. It'll be a huge entertaining film. It's already popular franchise, and then that theory will also be annulled. So it just comes back to basics. Big films are not necessarily always hit films, and every good film will find an audience. You just have to kind of make sure you choose as a studio which ones should be streaming and which ones not. And there is definitely cinema audiences back in throngs. Look at what's happening. Like there is as we speak, and I'm doing this interview, there is a Mahavatar Narsimha,
an animated
came
film
out of nowhere, where we were told animation does not work. It's proven that theory wrong. Love stories don't work. There's going to be a 400-500 crore blockbuster with Saiyaara with newcomers. Don't take newcomers. It's a star-led industry. That proven has been. Everything as we speak is being true. So what is really the truth? The truth is not to believe the moment, but to have conviction and just do what you're doing.
I mean, you're so right, and I love the idea that if we were having this conversation 2 months ago, it would be very different. And just the last few weeks have changed so much of that. I do want to ask you about Saiyaara. I know it's still very recent, but there's so many narratives being thrown around as to why, the post-mortem, as to why it's doing so well. I'm a big fan of the film. I thought it's Hindi cinema doubling down on what we do well. But some people say that it's the return of love stories. Some people say it's the return of Hindi film music. Some people say it's sort of two exciting newcomers. People talk about the marketing of it and how that was distinctive. What do you think is the right lesson to take away from the massive success of this film?
I think there was a gaping hole for a film like this, which we didn't see coming. Like there was how you were rooting, as I remember when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I saw Love Story in the cinema hall about 18 times. Like I went, and Kumar Gaurav and Vijayata Pandit and the music of Love Story became my Walkman, like craziness. Like all I did was listen. Then Betab came. And then I went crazy. Then Ek Duje Ke Liye came. And I remember like every couple of years, there was this one big love story with new actors that you were like, that were your teen idols, that you wanted to crush on, love on, put posters up on, like literally visit the cinema time and again to watch, because you didn't know anything about them. You had no idea where they came from. You didn't know, which gym they went to, or which, which restaurant they were coming out of in Bandra, or which airport and why. Like you don't know anything about. And there was a gaping hole of two people you don't know anything about. Musical energy, love story, and people you can actually idolize, with especially the Gen Z audiences, the younger audiences. I think there was a gaping hole, and the signs were already there. You saw it when Sanam Teri Kasam had a re-release, that intense, angsty love story. And one thing you have to know, Suchin, is that we think this is a Tinder swiping generation. We think this is a frivolous generation. Actually, this generation are intense lovers.
Interesting.
They are all intense lovers. They fall in love deeply. They don't rise in love. They all fall in love. And they are heartbroken. And for them, their heartbreak is their sense of like feeling alive. So all the songs that are heartbreak songs do well. All songs that are absolutely like about pain and angst. There's a lot of angst in this generation. So you tap into angst, you put in like some alpha energy, you put in this beautiful soundtrack, you make this heartfelt, heart-aching love story. Obviously, we didn't see this, and this is all retrospective. Of course, this is all like things that
after the fact.
Like after the film is out, I can tell you all this. But would I have told you this film would have voted 22? I would have never seen it. But now, when I'm academically analyzing it, I'm like, oh God, this is something that they struck upon at the right time. There was a need, it was the need of a film like this, and there wasn't a film like this. And this has happened after many years. They're saying after Kaho Na Pyar Hai. But Kaho Na Pyar Hai was also a mainstream commercial love story. This is just like a two people romance, and it's got like an external conflict, and it lands. The other thing is, again academically, films with internal conflicts don't always land to a wider audience.
Yeah, the coming of age,
Nobody understands coming of age.
Yeah.
Like I remember once, I asked Rishi Kapoor, who I love, he's my favorite actor, when he saw Wake Up Sid, and he was like, what is this? Yeah. So I said, this is a slice of life film. So he said, beta, bread ka slice hota hai. Life ka slice nahi hota. He said, what is slice of life? Ki kahani kya hai? I said, slice of life is not about a story. It's a slice of life.
Yeah.
So he's like, aisi film mein nahi chal sakti. So, you know, sometimes there's some kind of weird, that's the wrong word to use. There's some kind of wisdom that a certain generation will give you that you will not even think of.
Yeah.
Like coming of age, slice of life, they don't always land up giving you that massive, gigantic number. External conflicts still work. There is still, if you go back to Titanic's still rich and poor.
Yeah.
You know, if you go back to any massive love story, there's always an external conflict that's coming in the way of true love. Yeah. I think it was a combination of this gaping hole, this weight and desire for like your idols. The K-dramas are already giving you an indication that people are consuming it hugely. Everybody wants to watch love. Yeah. They want to watch pain. They want to watch heartbreak. And let me tell you, I think people enjoy heartbreak. I think there's a sense of like, there's that, I feel when stability in love tends to bore this generation. I really believe when there's drama and there's conflict and there's angst and there's desire and there's pain, I think they get off on it.
Do you feel, considering a lot of the films you've made that we've loved, do you feel validated that some part of you, because you know these are themes that you've also explored in the past?
Like when I saw Saiyaara, I think after a long time I felt so inspired. Yeah. I was like, I want to make a love story. Yeah. Like I want to make a quintessential love story with just all the right prerequisites that come to my mind easier than, you know, like I don't know, see I don't have the talent or the ability to make an RRR or Bahubali. I don't know how to make a KGF. I won't be able to grab the syntax, which I think Sandeep Anga Reddy does so geniusly. I don't know it. There are many things that I'm not capable of, that I'm not designed to be, and I don't want to chase something I'm not.
You were very honest recently where you talked about how for the longest time you were developing an action film, and you said that...
But I was play acting. Yeah. The thing is, I was play acting what I thought was commercial. Yeah. And when I sat in a room with the action directors, and I felt in 30 minutes I had phased out of that meeting. Yeah. Because they started showing me like, you know, like how they can like storyboard action, and then they started saying that this takes this much time because of the blood, because it was a very bloody film. And I went home that night and I literally couldn't sleep because I kept thinking that I'm play acting commercial. I'm play acting what I believe is working at the cinema halls means, but it's not my gut, my core, my belief system doesn't allow me. So the next day I called and said, I don't want to make this movie. And I had worked on it for a year and a half. Yeah. I've written that film. It's written with a tight bound dialogue draft, and I don't want to make it. It is being made, it's being directed by somebody else, and I'm sure it has the makings of a really solid commercial actioner. But I didn't want to direct it. So I've lost a year of my life, but I gained that realization that I don't want to do something I'm not capable of.
Yeah. Just coming back to Saiyaara, you know, for me, just coming back to what you said, one thing that was really inspiring is it didn't feel like an event film. It wasn't assembled. You know, it wasn't something that was aiming to, you know, like we've seen, there's so many of these sort of proposal films, many of which are very fun. This really just felt like us doing what we do very well, and then it happened to sort of break out in a massive way. Just coming to the last few months of your life in Dharma, I just wanted to sort of go over what the last few months have been. Firstly, as we were talking about before, it was recently 2 years of Rocky Rani. You know how much that film means to so many of us, so happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
So just recapping a little bit, May was the Cannes Film Festival where Neeraj Gewan's Homebound was selected in competition, and a lesser known up-and-coming filmmaker called Martin Scorsese came on board to produce that one. July was the release of two of your streaming films, Aap Jaisa Koi and Sarzameen. You've got Dhadak 2 releasing now, of course. You've also, you know, released the first look of multiple upcoming films, not to mention the 50 other things you do, you know, hosting traitors and things like that. So firstly, when do you sleep? And how involved are you getting with all of these projects? Is this business as usual? Do you always have this many balls up in the air?
I mean, the thing is that, when do I sleep? So I sleep very little.
Okay.
To answer your question, I'm a raging insomniac. Okay. I sleep like 4 to 5 hours at an average. How involved do I get? I have a belief system that when you make a film, you are part of the initial vision, which is like you green light a film, you love it on paper, and then you set it up, stage it, budget it, cast it perhaps, be a part of that process, and then leave it. There's no way that I can. So the good films, the bad films, the average films, the amazing films, all of those I can take no credit for after a point. But I will happily take the discredit because I'm the senior most in that crew, and I should take the discredit. I cannot allow one person to take take the bait of that failure in case the film has failed or hasn't landed as well as it should have. But I allow all the filmmakers who make movies to really go ahead and make their film. Then after that, there comes a stage of the edit where I step into, and sometimes what you're doing is actually correcting a film. You know, you never really, in my experience, there's only been one film, and I won't mention the name, that actually went from bad to good.
Okay.
Like, I've never seen that happen on any feature film in my life.
Not just salvage, but like...
No, it went from bad to good.
Whoever that editor is.
Yeah, and that editor is amazing, and he knows, he's watching this, that who he is.
Yeah.
It went from bad to good.
Yeah.
And I saw that happen in front of my eyes, and it happened during the pandemic. And like, I was like, oh my God, this can happen. So you do try that on and the others that are good from the beginning, you make better.
Yeah.
But the ones that are bad, you can probably salvage and make it at best an average film or a passable fare, but you can never really improve it. And after a point, you realize that letting go is the only way I can function, because if I'm controlling everything, then I'll never be able to allow the filmmaker to breathe. And then if that filmmaker is not breathing, it's not his or her voice, then why am I producing multiple films? I'm producing multiple films also to empower these other filmmakers. How can I go and tell Neeraj Ghewan what to do? I'll ruin it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no way my syntax of cinema can make a Masan or a Homebound. He knows what he's doing. I can't go and tell Nikhil Nagesh Bhatt what to do in Kill, because I've never shot an action film in my life.
You can just help enable them.
And even when I produced a love story, love story also we made, a love story, even though I know it's a genre close to my heart, I don't want to be an intrusion, because that filmmaker will look at it. So sometimes those love stories have turned out to be amazing, and some have fallen flat on their face. But those really are the risks you run when you run a studio. Like, you know, you have to delegate, and then you have to trust. And sometimes you will land well, and sometimes you will be on a shaky turf, and sometimes you will crash. You've got to take that chance, Suchin. That's the way I work. So I mean, like, at the end of the day, and let me tell you, I absolutely enjoy some of the extracurricular activities like Traitors, and like, I love that.
That was also a big hit, so congrats on that.
So I was like, I have again no credit, I did nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that format is gold.
Yeah.
I went to
It's a great
Rajasthan.
format.
It's a really clever format.
Yeah.
And when I went on that set, I was there 14 days, it was 50 degrees hot, it was really not fun wearing those long capes and walking around. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. I had 14 days of absolute amazement and fun, and I can't take any credit. The crew is responsible for the show, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
In those 14 days, I was doing some other work because I had a lot of hours in between. So I was doing some writing work. There was a film being developed. There was a second season of Call Me Bae being developed. So there was a lot happening at Suryagarh. So I managed to kind of pack in many things in a day, and doing many things in the day is how I like to live my life.
Yeah.
Like, if you send me on a holiday, I will be devastated. Like, I won't know what to do if I was alone. Now as a parent, I can take my kids on vacation, and that's also kind of a job. But like, if you send me on a holiday and say you are on holiday for a week, I'll die.
You're developing a slate.
No, I go crazy. Like, I won't know what. If I'm not firefighting or crisis managing, I'm not living.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you, based on your, watching the edit of all the films you produce, etc. You've always said that your instinct is pretty strong for when a film is not working, not very good, and how well received it's going to be. You sort of can tell. So is that instinct still very much there? You sort of always know that actually I know how this film is going to land.
My problem, Suchin, is that I'm hyper self-aware.
Okay.
To a fault, because living in a little bit of La La Land is sometimes it's so exhilarating to kind of not read, not know. My problem is I'll read every review. Yeah. I'll read every comment. A lot of times I feel like you have to work for the future as well. Yeah. You want to make films that can, and you will make, I've made my fair share of terrible films. And those will, and I'm promising you there will be many more to follow. You can't stop that, right? You can't control creativity or the lack of it sometimes. You can't. There will be films that will fall flat on its face, and like, you will see it. The thing is that I've always seen it coming. I've really been shocked by the result of a film. Like, I've never been like, oh my God, like, this was amazing and it didn't do well. I'm like, no, I know, I can see.
That's got to feel pretty good that instinct is still intact.
No, it's scary because like, you're always living under like knowing it, and like it's not fun because you still have to go through the beats of putting up a front with everyone.
Marketing it. And something you said reminded me of something Fahad Fazal said in an interview recently to my colleague Vishal Menon. He said it was something, I can't remember the phrasing. He said every film is fighting the battle of time. He said more than box office, more than all this stuff, the films I'm trying to make, I want them talked about or loved 10 years later. And then I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it. It's
we like to believe that that your films will not just be films, but they'll be legacies, you know, like in terms of that you'll quote them. But when you do it at that time, you can't plan it. I can't plan a film that will be remembered 2 decades, 3 decades down. I didn't know, like when I wrote a line in a film that, oh, this will be quoted in pop culture. Like, you know, what does it even mean? Like my first line in my film, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai Tum Nahi Samjhoge, even I don't know the line. What does it really mean? It doesn't mean anything.
It means whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah, but I'm like, it becomes part of some kind of pop culture and referenced. But what does, even while it has Tum Nahi Samjhoge, even I have not understood. Like literally it says Kuch Kuch Hota Hai Tum Nahi Samjhoge. This line doesn't make sense. But you believe it at that point. You write it. An actor says it so beautifully. It stays on. It lives. It breathes. And today you're like, I don't know how to create this again. You know, you don't know because it just happened in that moment. Like it just happened. So like the things you can't plan it, but you hope for it.
You mentioned critics. I was going to ask you about that later, but I'll bring them up now. I want to get your perspective on the current landscape from a producer's perspective, from a filmmaker's perspective. You know, film journalism, criticism, I mean, from my perspective, there are 5 respectable, honest, credible critics who do meaningful work. The rest of them are different combinations of cartoons or people who tend to have a very loose relationship with credibility, or, you know, then you have the influencers and YouTubers. And it just feels like so much of film journalism is paid for or can be paid for. You know, it's never been easier to control that narrative. So, and obviously that feels very sad for the audience, for the industry, but from your perspective, how does that impact you? Because I would imagine for some producers that's great. You know, you can really sort of move things around and present things in a certain way, but it just feels very, very heartbreaking because you just want to give due credit to the storytelling, the talent, have the conversations the film deserves. So how do you see the current landscape?
You know, it's, I mean, like there is, like you said, you actually said it, my answer would lie in your question itself. You said everything. Like you said, this is the landscape of film criticism that exists today. And if you can't fight it, you don't want to join it, you don't want to beat it, you want to just like make sure that you know that some films really rely very heavily on a certain kind of critical acclaim, and you want that to land. You know, you want a film that is designed for that acclaim because that acclaim can take its footfalls ahead. So you hope that happens, and you actually can see through it all. Like even if today I do an entire paid campaign, it's validation for that day. And who are you validating? Because you've paid for it. So you are not validating. Everyone can see through it. Pure love. Like let's go back to Saiyaara. Saiyaara got love from every kind of audience, right? From the most intellectual to the most like commercial, mainstream trade, analysts, etc. Everyone across the board. It just felt beautifully organic. And I think there is a beauty in organic. You know, if it's going to come naturally, it's going to come. If there's going to be mixed, that's also great. Like I remember we made a film called Gehraiyan, and there was a sharp divide. There was a sharp divide. It was, and we actually took it up. We called 8 critics.
I remember that.
And 4 didn't like it, and 4 loved it, and like we talked about it because I'm like, let's talk about the polarization. So I think, Suchin, to any person who has their ear to the ground is going to sense that this is credible and this is not. My only problem with some kind of criticism is, my problem is not like, it could be not just a problem, but just my observation. Sometimes I'm like, you're a critic, you're not a stand-up. You know, you're not meant to make an audience laugh. Like, you know, because that's a stand-up comedian. There's a proper profession. Go join that. So if you really want to be nasty or mean, that's fine, but don't do it for laughs. And I know it reads funnily, but like you do know you're hurting an entire bunch of people who worked very hard. So please, with all means, diss a film, criticize it, like pull it down if you need to, whatever you need to say. There are 2 things I have a problem with. One is when you're like actually being funny for the sake of a clickbait headline or like something just to kind of, the other is
the
like,
agenda is funny.
And and the other is like, don't watch it is not up to you to say. You can critique it. Don't watch it is not for you. Like, don't watch it. Like, watch it at home if you.
That's not criticism.
That is not criticism. Criticism is that genuinely saying like, okay, these were my issues with the film. I didn't like it for these many reasons. But like, for example, there are reviews who end and say you can watch, like Anu ends her reviews like that. You can watch the film on streaming, you can watch the film at a theatre near you. She's never saying don't watch it. You know, and that's great, because I'm like, these are the two, not just my issues, my observations, because who am I to have issues about anything? I'm not allowed to, as we aren't in this day and age. But like, my thing is like, please, you don't have to be funny if you want to be critical. You can just be critical, because you know your job is not to amuse an audience; it's to actually empower them with your opinion.
No, I agree with you. I think if you're stepping in, if the aim is to roast, if you're stepping into that film and your agenda is clear and it's not in response to the film, that, you know, again, the word agenda, 100%. I want to come back to sort of the box office side of things. You know, as you said, the mid-budget film, it felt like half that audience disappeared because of streaming or travel, etc. Is there any hope of them coming back? Because I've never been someone who tracked box office. That's not my business. I don't understand that world. It's always been about the storytelling. Recently, in the last 2 years, I very much have started, because I feel like every film is fighting for the relevance of Hindi cinema overall. So you just feel very invested for the industry. So with the mid-budget film, which is so often the best film of every year of the last 2 decades, is there any hope of that audience coming back?
Well, I think I feel like, let's talk about Lapata Ladies, all right? Okay, Lapata Ladies does an X amount of business. It doesn't do like blockbuster business like one would have hoped and prayed, because it was such a beautiful film. But it does get all that love on Netflix, you know? So it does find its audience. Now, will that base, say that particular number, the net box office number of Lapata Ladies, will that go higher? Perhaps. Because there will be an exhaustion with streaming. There is a certain fervor back in cinema halls. Now, this is again, I'm speaking today. Now, you call me for an interview 2 years later and we'll be
2 weeks later.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks later. We'll be like, okay, you know, one doesn't know. Right now, like as I speak, like there's a fight for screen space this Friday. Like there are 6 things working in cinema halls. That's great.
That's amazing.
Like, one of them is my film, and I'm like really scared, because it's like we're fighting screen space, right? We don't know, and they're divided audiences. And how do you achieve your numbers if you have 10 options and all performing excellently, and rightfully we should all celebrate it. But when you're part of that race, you just feel a bit sad that, you know, you're like not being given the adequate amount of like time and energy. But I just believe that base of that mid-sized film, rather not even mid-size, I think that's slightly off-center film that does have an accessibility attached to it.
They're very mainstream.
They're mainstream in their syntax, but that base will increase, but it will take time. It's not going to happen like immediately. There will be a slow, and also I think many strategic decisions have to happen. When you have a film like this, you have to plan the release in a certain way, which is not in a crowded month. You have to plan it in a way that you know that there is not a flow of films that for the next couple of, like say what happened with 12th Fail. 12th Fail began with a 1+ crore and went up to 60+. Now that's never happened. That happened because it had weeks to perform. There wasn't a Pushpa that came in its way. There wasn't a KGF that came in its way. That is also sometimes all about luck as well, right? When you have that. So there are many factors, but what you can do is, what is in your control is, can I release this film at a time where I know for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we don't have massive opposition, so we can build an audience.
So there is hope.
So there is hope.
Because, you know, the other thing you said recently in an interview about mid-budget, you said that one way it might work is if a star doesn't take fees for that, you know, doesn't put the burden of their fees on the project, take it after the fact, box office, etc. I feel like I read a lot about this happening maybe 10 years ago. I remember, I think there was something about Haider and Shahid doing that, if I'm not mistaken. But the sense I get, correct me if I'm wrong, is today there seems to be more of a reluctance to do that.
I don't think many mainstream actors want to take chances today. I don't think they want. I think the box office game has become too important. It's become too big in all their collective heads. So they don't want to take a chance.
Or put the film first.
They don't want to. Mr. Bachchan in his prime did like films that were like artistically bent, and he took those chances, you know. Shah Rukh himself, you know, at the peak of his career does a Paheli, and you know, has done an Ashoka, and you know, actually I think today everyone, the game is so much bigger. Social media has made it bigger. Everything is talked about. Box office, like you said, you never tracked box office, and now you are. So can you imagine now the average audience is discussing numbers, because box office is being thrown at you, gross, net, worldwide, everything. Like you don't know where you're checking for validity. Like you don't know what you're really referring, what you're referencing as the right number. But like everyone is playing the box office game. When you're playing the box office game, you will not take chances as an artist. And I feel more power to those who will, but many of the mainstream big stars are not going to take big chances.
Is it because it's sort of the time of fear in terms of people don't know what's working, what a safe bet is, so they're just trying to land the wins, and so there'll be reluctance to do something for the sake of storytelling?
Or then if at all they want to, they'll say, let's do it for streaming, because that way we don't have a report card. You know, so like that also happens. Like, but or if you list the 10 big stars, male and female, both, which one of them at this point of time is taking a chance? You will not find one film.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about one example of someone taking a chance. I wanted to talk to you about JIGRA. That is a film that I'm a big fan of. I can see why people had issues with it, but I felt every fiber of that film, and specifically that performance, with my entire being. And more importantly, from a producer perspective, it just felt like a big action narrative, you know, centered around a female star. That's original. That's not tagged onto a franchise. I wanted to ask you what you feel happened there, and also, I don't understand these things, but I remember watching it, and there was a very weird energy in the air, social media, etc. There seemed a lot of energy and focus on pulling that film down, which had nothing to do with the film. And I don't quite understand it, so I just wanted to get your take on what happened, because I just felt like there was a lot of hopes riding on that film.
I think there's a certain syntax that Vasan has. I think that is so individualistic and brilliant. Like, I think he's one of the finest minds we have. He's a brilliant filmmaker. And I really feel like JIGRA had a certain syntax that was just not like quintessentially mainstream. And I think that we did realize that when we were watching it, but we all believed it together. I think whether it was Somen Mishra, who kind of was the creative development head, or I brought the film together, Vasan directed it, Alia, none of us were not on the same page. We knew what we were going for. We were hoping beyond hope that it would find a wider audience, but we all understand it. We all understand that this is a film that may not speak to, because I think Vasan's meta-referencing, Vasan's quirk, Vasan's like absolute breaking the grammar filmmaking is not always going to land, right? It's not always going to land. But should he stop and not make a film like this? No, he must always make films that he believes in. And I will always want to support Vasan Bala. If he comes to me and says, Karan, I want you to produce this, I will produce something of that Vasan Bala directs without any questions asked.
That's wonderful.
Because I really believe in him. Yes, we were disappointed. Yes, we were dejected. Yes, we were sad. But we all feel very proud of that film even today. Even now, we have a group. Vasan, me and Alia together, we have a group, and we still send and Vasan has a brilliant self-deprecating sense of humor. Like, he will make fun of himself in the most unique way possible. We still send messages in our group when we get like that one message of somebody, like I'll go today and say, oh, we spoke about JIGRA today in this chat, like I'll do, we've kept that group alive, because I do believe that a decade later, 2 decades later, we will reference JIGRA as something that broke ground, something that Alia was brave to do, something that we were brave to produce, and Vasan was brave to contribute and made. So I'm very proud of JIGRA, and I never look back and say, oh, there are films that I'm not proud of that I failed, and I won't mention those. This film may have failed at the box office, but to me it's a success story for me as a studio, and I will maintain that. And yes, every film is flawed. We can discuss those flaws, we can analyze it. But was the core belief system of that film that, oh, it shocked us when it failed? No, we understood it. And we did discuss it. We were pragmatic enough to know that, look, we could be in a hit-miss zone. We may hit the bullseye, we might miss it, we should be aware. So we were definitely some people who were self-aware. So none of its outcome was not a devastating shock to any of us. You know, but we still, like all creative artists, hope for the best.
Just coming back to the sort of mid-budget and the challenges of mounting that film, I want to ask you, how the hell is Malayalam Cinema doing it? And I'm not even talking about quality. They are operating on another level. We know this. I'm not even talking about star fees. But, you know, these films, Alapura Gymkhana, Avesham, Manimal Boys, there's countless examples. They are incredibly cinematic. There's so much style, there's so much scale there for a very, in quotes, modest budget. So is there nothing that we can learn from them in terms of mounting an incredibly cinematic film at a more reasonable?
I really would like to be on one of those sets, because I don't have an answer to this question. Like, I've loved all the names you mentioned. Avesham was outstanding. I think Fahad is one of our finest actors. Manumal Boys, like, I went crazy about. Like, that last act, I was like, literally, I was gasping for breath. It was that good. When I hear the number that's made it, I don't know how to produce a film at that budget. It's not possible in Mumbai city to make a film with technicians from Bollywood, for the lack of a better word of describing this industry. How do you make a film at that budget? We can't. Because our pay scales are higher, the pay per day shoot is higher, every technician, artist, collaborator, everyone is more expensive here. We are just a more expensive industry. We are paying much more, and now that's the norm. You can't change it. How do you can't now? What do you do? That's the for the lack of a better way of describing it. That's your rate card. Like it's out there. You've already made movies. You've paid people that price. Now you can't suddenly say, okay, this is a like when, for example, when I was directing, I was part of the anthology. Love Stories and Bombay Talkies. I remember we were all given 1.5 crore at that time to make the first two films, and everybody turned to me and said, "You can't cheat, and like you can't spend more, like because this is what was given to us by the studio." And it was a really fun exercise. And I remember we went around making those films. Like Anurag joked and said that, "Oh, this is way more than like I need." Like he was like hilarious about it. But Zoya and I were like, "How do we make this in this film? Like we've never done it." So for me, it was like beg, borrow, steal. Like I remember calling technicians and saying, "Hey, listen, can you do this free, or can you charge very little, because we don't." And it was like, it was a fun experiment for me. But I realized it was fun because it was 6 days. Interesting. But if I tomorrow want to make like a film which is thematically, no, Rocky Rani is of course a mainstream commercial film. But if I want to make like an experimental film, and who's going to buy my rant about like, can you charge only because this is that film? Because they're like, no, this is what we want. And of course they do. Like for example, I have to say, we produced Homebound, and I think everybody came together to make that film, and money was not the objective. It was to make a film that was resonant, beautiful, cinematic and relevant, all in equal measure. And I think that, and I don't want to get into the details of the pricing and costing, but I think everyone was cognizant of the fact that this is not a film that has to be lensed as a mainstream film. So it's not that it hasn't happened. We've done it, but it's tough.
But the film came first.
Yes, for everyone, for everyone.
No, I mean, that makes sense, because it's just, you watch some of these Malayalam films and you're like, it's one of the most cinematic things you've seen, and you see the number and you're like, I mean, it's insane.
I mean, I get like shell shocked. Like I'm like, how has this happened? For me, it's like more shocking than artificial intelligence is the budget of those movies.
More than AI, Malayalam cinema is coming for us all. Happy way to go. I wanted to switch gears and talk to you about the big event film in Hindi cinema. Obviously the big narrative of the last few years is it's the South and the four industries in the South making these incredibly fun, massy films. They're the ones that get us so excited. Even now, if we were to look ahead for the next 2 years, the films I'm most excited about in that world, the massive event film, tend to be Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam films. You've talked about how one of the reasons for Hindi cinema and our filmmakers have lost that syntax. You said that we want those numbers, but the syntax of the big mass movie is something that went out of Hindi cinema over the last few decades, which I understand. What I wanted to ask you is, even if you ignore that, even if you just talk about the big event film that people want to see, the big blockbuster, do we have a director problem? Because even if you ask me the directors who I'm incredibly excited about, I think of Nelson, Lokesh Kanagaraj, Prashant Neel, all of these guys, Atlee.
Yeah, we do.
But can I think of directors who I really admire who can mount that massive film that just wants people to rush to the theatre?
It is a crisis.
Yeah.
It is a director crisis. It is. You can't think of more than like a name or two. Like you can't. Like there isn't anyone. Because that entire generation was spending their time watching a different kind of film in Hindi cinema, nurtured on a different kind of cinema. Globalization in the 2000s, Shah Rukh Khan phenomena, love stories, shot outside of the country, that syntax, loved that music, loved that energy. They've done all that. They haven't been able to do that front-footed mainstream testosterone cinema. They don't know it. They've never known it. Now they can't learn it. So they emulate it and then fall flat on their face. And like we're going through that problem. We don't have the directors. So like you think of this film, you can't think like, I don't know if we can mount a film like some of the films and like that have been made, like that front-footed conviction. So I'm like, okay, if we can't, then let's thank God for Saiyaara. Like I'm like, this we can do.
There is hope.
This, and let me tell you, everyone, like when I met Mohit Suri, he told me like all the filmmakers from the South called him. And it was so gratifying to know that we made a film because we are the ones who are calling. Like, I'm the one who's speaking, meeting Prashant Neel and telling him how much I love him, Rajamouli sir, who I absolutely love and respect beyond respect. We're always picking up the phone on telling them how incredible their films are. Sandeep Mangareddy and like all of them. Now I'm like, when he told me he was getting calls from all these filmmakers, I was like, yes, like amazing, more power. So I'm like, okay, we do one thing well, let's do that. Let's go back to just our storytelling, because there's some things that we do that only we can do, you know, which is that wholesome film, which is, and maybe we shouldn't attempt, you know, trying to do what is not our, comes naturally to us. You know, because the entire 80s or 90s, when 80s we were doing a lot of South remakes actually, and in the 90s we went into love. You know, we went into the massive era of love and love stories and big tentpole. Those days, those tentpole films were love stories. You know, Diwali had a Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. Dilwali had a Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. A Dil To Pagal Hai. The Eid release was Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham. You know, again the Eid release was Kal Ho Na Ho. Like, if I'm going back, all the festival releases were these films. You know, these were considered the tentpole big films. In that time, there were filmmakers were not training in a certain sense, whereas the South was still actually following the Bachchan model from Diwar and Trishul and Zanjeer. They stuck to that tonality, and I think that somewhere we don't have filmmakers who are trained in that tonality.
But I wasn't, I mean, I understand that. I wasn't even talking about that sort of testosterone-driven mass movie. I understand that that is, you know, something they're doing so well and they can be incredibly fun. But I was just meaning the big event film by itself. I mean, for me, I can only think of Siddharth Anand, who's really, you know, he made some really, really fun films. Obviously, Nitesh Tiwari is around the corner with a very ambitious Ramayan. But so there are people trying. But I just wondered that, like.
But I'm saying that you're mentioning such few names.
I can barely think of many.
I'm trying to tell you that it doesn't matter about the testosterone, alpha mainstream film. It's just that big mounted film is very tough to attach a name to.
Because right now, if you put a gun to my head, I'm thinking of Coolie, I'm thinking of Toxic, I'm thinking, you know, these are the ones that, like, we're incredibly excited about.
And I'm like, we're all rooting collectively, also because I'm emotionally attached to war.
Of course,
but like, I really wanted to land, like, because I'm like, I want Ayan Mukherjee to shine, because, you know, he has an individual voice, and he's doing his tentpole film after Brahmastra. I'm like rooting.
And the first War is one of the most fun masala films.
I loved it. I loved it. I remember I was shooting in Goa for Ghost Stories, and we went to watch War, and the entire crew went to watch War. Ghost Stories was a very bad film I directed, but just as an aside.
You said it, I didn't.
Terrible. Like, I was like,
great idea though. I love the idea of that.
No, but like, I don't know how dare I attempt it. How stupid of me to even say it. Like, I should do this. I should have just said no. Like, I can't do this. I'm incapable.
You could have made an undead love story.
But I'm like, no, I should try something new. But I'm like, you know what? It's good. You should try new stuff. But like, it didn't land on its feet at all. We went to see War, and we were like, oh my God, this is so much fun. Then I went back the next day shooting Ghost Stories, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I want to be like on a set like that. Like, I want to go and watch Hrithik and Tiger dance again.
It was so much fun. You know, the way they he merged sort of slick execution with
War, it was just
with like
it's quintessential popcorn fun.
Exactly.
You know, it's like so fun
and very Hindi cinema star worship.
Love it.
We recently did a conversation with screenwriters on the show, and one of the things we talked about in the uphill battle that screenwriters face, you know, of sort of credits and money, which unfortunately is still a very, very relevant conversation. You know, there was this talk of a very big reluctance within the industry to mount star writers. The whole idea that, you know, if there is a star writer, someone who, you know, a Salim Javed example, who can really be a massive hit maker, but there is a massive reluctance publicly to sort of even allow those things to exist because you'd have to pay them a lot more. So the fact that we're still talking about this, how do we address that? How, you know, because screenwriters, the things they face is still...
I think that we have already begun, but we need to empower them much more. But we have to empower lots of technicians more than they are empowered. I think we are so driven by the star system and by the big director or the big film. No, I'm like, the writer is the hero. Eventually, if the writer has done all the heavy lifting, but here a lot of filmmakers are also writers. You understand?
Or claim to be.
So there's all, claim to be, or credit themselves to be. A lot of them are writing their own material. So then invariably you don't know who's done the work. Because many a time you worked with a writer attached to a film that has done very well, and then you meet that writer and he or she don't have the chops that the film actually had. Then you realize that, the credit. So you don't know. But if there is a Salim Javed today, and if there is a great writer, like a great writer, then they must be empowered. They must be paid top dollar. As must an editor, as must a cinematographer.
But how do we get there?
We get there with your own, you can only police yourself, right? We at our end, we always empower our writers. We've always given them frontline credit. We've always tried to increase. I mean, just that they feel more energized and more incentivized to write kind of work.
I do remember with Rocky Rani, whenever you gave interviews, you did talk about sort of your writers on the film. Which
always, because it was them who did the work. They did the heavy lifting. I was directing the film, you know. And of course, it's my job to be part of the ideation room, right? But that doesn't mean I take credit, you know. And I have never taken a story credit, because I'm like, a story is an ambiguous term, because a screenplay absorbs a story and changes it. So if you have an idea, if I give you an idea, that's not a story. That's a germ, that's a thought. Somebody has built it into the screenplay, then you should not take that credit. And yes, if you wrote 5 lines or you gave 10 suggestions, that's your job as a director. Why are you taking that credit? I would not want to take credit where I am definitely a part of just the ideation of it. That way I'm contributing to costume and production design and giving the cinematographer my vision. Should I be taking credit everywhere? I don't know, somehow I don't know why directors like to take writing credit. Ego. I really don't understand it. It's like, what are you trying to do? Because you didn't write it. You gave your idea and suggestion. That's your job. That's your freaking job as a filmmaker. Like, you have to give it your film. I don't get it.
I want to also get your thoughts on streaming. You know, it feels like over the last year or 2 years, there has been a big contraction in that space. You know, the streaming is what I've been primarily covering for the last few years, and I've constantly and continually said that the finest Hindi language storytelling performances has all been on streaming over the last few years. And I'm very protective of that space, but it feels like there is this contraction, budgets have come crashing down. And I was talking to Sudeep Sharma on this podcast last year, and we talked about how the golden age of streaming is now over because of Indian streaming. Because, you know, over the last few years, we were inundated with such interesting narratives, the kind of diversity that we've very rarely seen. So does that concern you? Because there was such an exciting space.
I mean, really, it's quite something, because like, if you just think of like on a series, if you get a percentage as producers of a budget, your margins are so low. So it's a case of volume. So when you're doing volume, obviously quality will suffer. Because the good old the golden period of streaming, when everybody was consuming massive content and it was new, you know, all the streaming services were new, everybody. Right now, everybody's like, everyone's giving you an algorithm, everybody's giving you a drop-off point, and like, I don't understand how to function, because they're told, oh, capture me in the first 5 minutes, then give me another shock after the second episode. Then I'm like,
by minute 7,
so I'm like, writing has been replaced by an algorithm. You know, and like creativity has been replaced by data, and budgets have been lessened, because the fact is that, you know, that there is so much content out there that, and I understand the streaming services have to protect their own interests. You know, they also are answerable to like their bosses and wherever in the world they are, like, and they have to kind of make sure that it's all successful. So things are tough. To make a great series now has to depend on supreme writing. It cannot be a spectacle, because, you know, and if you do that 1 or 2 tentpole spectacles, then you have to know that it's a chance you're taking, because if it doesn't land, then, you know, you can risk a hell of a lot of loss. Also, you're paying so much money for licensing rights for films, right? Because all streaming services have realized that eventually that's also giving you huge amount of eyeballs and huge amount of subscription and huge amount of new energy have come in when you actually are paying top dollar for a big tentpole film.
Post-theatrical.
Post-theatrical, licensing movies, basically. Then that's why the DTS films, the direct-to-service films, have reduced. You know, how they were more, because now the direct-to-service films, now they're like, I'd rather pay that money for a licensing film. Why am I paying the same? So the DTS films are tinier. You know, they're much lesser, they're smaller, they're lesser in content. So like, it's, the game has changed, and you have to play the game. As producer and studio head, I'm like, okay, now I need to do 10 things, because if I do 2, I won't make enough money. So I need to do 10 things.
But then that's when the quality becomes a challenge.
That's when the quality is a challenge. When your budgets are low, then so then you have to be that much more creative, which is what is exciting. So I think we'll go through a bumpy year or 2, but I think we'll find our space.
I will take the hope. And I was just going to say, you know, to your point about licensing, you know, the best marketing strategy for a straight to streaming film is a theatrical release. You know, that's sort of
so that's why they, when they say that, oh, when you come with a budget of a 50 crore or a 40 crore budget on a DTS film, direct to service film, they will be like, but if I can get this money for a licensed film, why should I pay you this? And logically they're right. So then they'll say, okay, now make it in 20. Now, how do you make this film in 20 crores? So then you're like, okay, now maybe not make it at all. And that's what happens.
But the flip side of the narrative, you know, there's this other thing that a lot of people talk about, where over the last few years, it feels like streaming has also become a bit of a dumping ground, is what they say, for studios who are less confident in their films, or, you know, actors, you know, might not feel overly confident about a film and ask that it goes to streaming, because you can fudge the numbers however you want. So is that Is that also a thing that sort of?
I think it was a reality in one phase, but I think everyone's too smart for it now.
Yeah.
Like nobody's paying you that money unless you're wanting to give it at a heavy loss.
Yeah.
And you want to protect your reputation, and you can afford to protect your reputation and yet give it, then you go and do it.
Yeah.
You know, because yes, a report card is not fun. Yeah. A failed report card, read on your box office report card is not fun. Yeah. It doesn't service anyone, you know. So, I mean, yeah, it is. It was, I think you could call it eventually, it could have been a dumping ground in one part. Yeah. But right now, I think no streaming service is just going to take what you're giving them. You know, they'll want to watch it, they'll have an opinion, and they'll say no to you. Yeah. And pretty much you know that who the powerful players are, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And even a lot of the top ones also have a lot of films that lie unreleased.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to take. They
don't want to take chances, and then they give it at a lesser cost, and that's fine because your reputation is protecting yourself. And the thing is, it's your money. You can do what you want. Course, yeah. If you want to stop a release of a film and you want to put it straight to digital, because you can afford to take that chance and maybe give it at a distressed sale price, then so be it.
But on the flip side of that, another narrative that gets thrown around is this idea that the top streamers have something of a stranglehold over certain producers or the industry because they've started for theatrical releases, for the licensing, because they've started to dictate release dates and things like that because so much of the industry started to become dependent on that streaming revenue. So is that a reality? Is that something that people have to contend with, where they have to now?
Of course you have to, because you've told them. Yeah. And invariably it's the time management at our end sometimes suffers because of various factors. When you're making a tentpole film, VFX can take you all the time in the world. It's like a bottomless pit, right? You can keep trying, and at one point you have to succumb and submit and and give it up. But they are going by their quarters. You must understand it's also a business. Why do we take commerce out of the art altogether? They are reporting their quarters. They had kept a tentpole film in this quarter. They can maybe shove it to another quarter. But if they can't go beyond that, because they all their budgets were on that film. You know, so you need to deliver. And they were like, look, don't deliver or we'll have to buy something else. And so they know that they are going. So I don't know why we always make somebody the enemy. Right. Like, you know, we tend to do that, as most industries tend to, like creative industries sometimes feel like very victimized. You know, and I feel like we can never, I always like to listen to the flip side. So please, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Jio Hotstar, they also have answerabilities. They also have deadlines. They also have quarters. They also have budgets. They also have a mandate.
They're not doing it
You
for fun.
have to respect it. While they're respecting your craft, it's not a one-way street. It is a two-way street. We're in this to make money, right? We're also in this business to make money. They are also here to make money. We're also to make money. So, at which part of this does nobody understand? Like, I'm like, so if they're telling you, if you told them I'm releasing in Jan, and you are delayed by a year, it's going to be a problem. So they will have to come back on the table and renegotiate. Then you will get offended. You can't have an ego. You know, the only thing I always believed is, like, don't allow anyone to trample your self-respect, but ego, please make it negotiable.
I guess people tend to confuse the two.
There is a big difference. You know.
I did also want to ask you a Nadania question. You know, you've said in the past that, you know, ignore me, hate me, love me, hate me or love me, just don't ignore me. And you've talked about your releases as well. Does that also, what happens when a film like that, where there is so much uproar? Because I'm guessing it was very widely viewed. I don't know any numbers, but I'm guessing it was. But at the same time, there is, you know, this narrative of people not liking it. How do you then equate the two? Because I felt this recently with The Royals, which is the Netflix show, which I know you didn't make. I thought it was terrible, but I know it got a massive viewership. So I'm also curious that from their perspective, do you sit back and be like, we're happy with the viewership, or how much value do you give the fact that so many people are unhappy?
As a creative artist, as a collaborator, no film that receives criticism ever makes me happy. How can it? Even if a gazillion people watched it and it wasn't liked, it was watched for the wrong reasons. You cannot. I'm sorry, I'll be very stupid to be deluded about the fact that yes, it didn't get the love, it did not get liked, it was dissed, it was bitched, and maybe a bit more than it should have, because I'm like, let it go after a point. Like, it's a film you didn't like, move on. Can you? Like, there were YouTube creators and content creators who were making 4 videos on it. I'm like, you made 1, right? Because you know you're getting the hits.
Because the algorithm is...
because you're like getting the hits again and again, because bashing Nadania was like the fashion of that moment. And like, it was like really like making people kind of go and watch your YouTube video, and they were enjoying it. It's like celebrated negatively, and like that does happen sometimes. That put aside, I have no way can tell you that, oh, it got massive numbers, so I'm happy about it. No, I can't be happy about it. It didn't get the love. We have to accept it, acknowledge it, and move on from it and do better next time. That's all. How can I say that, oh, this show or this movie is amazing because so many million people watched it. But if it didn't get the love, even if the whole world watched it, you're going to feel it in your heart. Like, you're going to know it. And so I'm like, all of us are very self-aware, as I told you right at the top of our chat. Like, self-awareness is a part of my personality type. I can't do anything about it. I'm very aware. And will I go out there and apologize for it? No, I will probably speak to the team, take stock of it and do that. I'm like, it's out there and we have dealt with it internally, and that's all we really want to speak about it. But now, can you move on to the next bad show or bad film, because leave us alone, like, it's done. Like, you hated it, we got it, we accepted it.
You got your YouTube videos.
You got it. Now we moved on, and so should you.
Looking ahead, I wanted to ask you a couple of, running a studio in 2025 questions. I wanted to ask you about this, obviously the big talk of you and Adar Poonawalla coming together as this sort of merger. I don't understand business things. Everything I've learned about life, I've learned from Coffee with Karan, but I will try and understand this one. There was a lot of people saying this is very exciting, this is very cool because it's a big injection of funds into the industry. It's very heartening. Then there was another group saying that, is this a sign of how dire the times are? What should we be taking from this?
I think it's an individual decision. It's something that I needed to do for myself at this juncture of my life, where I felt I needed to kind of take control over the films I wanted to make. I didn't want studio funding. I didn't want to share IP. I didn't want to divide profits always. I wanted like the loss and the profit or whatever to be entirely my own, because prior to this, we are a nascent studio, Suchin. Dharma production hasn't existed in the ecosystem forever. We are about 15 years old. Like, when we started mass producing films, it was 2008.
Right?
So, I mean, now we're in 25, but I'm talking about the deal was done in 2023, around that time 24. So we were 15 years into the business. In 15 years, we built a certain kind of business model, where we were always dependent on other studios. And I didn't want to do that. And I wanted to create verticals. I wanted to start my distribution arm. I wanted to do something with music. I wanted to do something with maybe AI next. I mean, like, who knows? But like, I wasn't able to do it. I didn't have the funds to do it, because I'm a nascent studio. I'm a boutique studio that wants to get bigger and have my own verticals. For me, it was a very individual decision that we took at that time, which was good for me. At that time, I'm not thinking of like, yes, the fact that, he's an outside investor, he's not from the business, he's not a strategic partner, is amazing. That, but he's not doing 10 other things. So how is it really amazing for the industry? He's not that he's buying 10 more studios, right? If he was, that would be amazing. He's happy, he's made his decision. We're friends, we're collaborators. He's amazing to work with. He's one of the most progressive, visionary minds I know. He's clever and he's intuitive and he's easy. And that's the kind of business partnership I was looking for. So I can only speak for myself. That decision worked very well for us as Dharma Productions. Is it going to benefit the industry by and large? No, I don't think so, because I'm like, there have to be 10 others coming in and giving money to but I do think that we started a ball rolling, because there were other investments that started happening right after this.
And if they do happen in that carry zone, that's me asking, is that a good thing?
Yes,
that's
because like, we all want to be more in control of how we produce our films. And I didn't want to necessarily depend on someone else to get a film out. Because then everything is dependency, and you strive for independence in every which way, symbolically, emotionally, professionally, every which way. This is what I was striving for, independence.
And just creatively, the next Dharma rom-com won't be like a son of a rich pharma company, heir in love with a lab assistant. Is that something we...
No, I don't think. Because we were still Dharma, we haven't become pharma productions as yet. Right?
The memes were excellent.
Yes, they were excellent. I absolutely love the meme culture. I think they're so clever. Even some of the troll armies, like, they're brilliant. Like, I'm like, they should write movies. They're
like,
so
ouch,
creative.
but funny.
They're really funny. Like, I laugh a lot at some of the like comments that people write about me, and when they're dissing me or criticizing me or saying something negative, I laugh loudly. In fact, there are many times I've actually shared some comments, I've taken screen grabs and sent it to people, like friends on groups, and I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, some of the things I read, I'm like, are really clever. If the criticism is really clever, it's commendable.
And you've also talked about, with the whole merger, you keep talking about wanting to expand to new verticals. Is that because in 2025, if you have a movie studio, the only way to really be in the best position possible is to try different things, not just rely completely on movies, theatrical, streaming, but really dive into other industries as well?
I mean, like within your industry,
Yeah.
of course.
Related, yeah.
Yeah,
Of course,
but I think expansion and I would say just, you know, going out of your comfort zone and doing stuff that excite you as well, you know. So like, I don't want to do something and expand into a vertical I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like for example, like I know that my passion is to make films that are tentpole, which have computer graphics, VFX, and now of course AI will enter. But it's not a passion for me, but music is. So I want to do something with music. Distributing was also something I enjoy because I like to know data and analytics and like I love all that. So I want to of course expand to things that I feel passionate about, because that's why my contribution will be evident.
Yeah. You've mentioned AI twice. I have to ask you, I mean, it scares the shit out of me. I mean, I'm a purist, maybe I'm someone who's going to be irrelevant in 7 days, but you know, I feel like there's a distinction to be made between creativity and execution. Those lines blur. You hear all kinds of stories, especially in Hollywood where it's talked about a lot more. Execution-wise, budgeting-wise, I completely understand the value of it, but when it comes to, it feels like a lot of people use it in the creativity aspect as well. So how scared should we be?
Very.
Okay.
Very.
Okay.
Very. It's give it not even like people are saying 10 years, I'm giving it 2. You'll see entire AI movies. You'll see entire movies that are made by that will be made in a certain cost, that will release, that will find an audience. But what gives me like great, well, some kind of a soothing effect or balming effect over and above is
we need that.
That by virtue of just this terminology, that's exactly what it is. It is artificial intelligence. Yeah. What is natural and pure and human is always going to show up, and that's always you're going to be able to spot the difference. So I think the genres that I love, the human dramas, can never be AI films.
Yeah. AI cannot make Saiyaara.
They will never be able to make Saiyaara.
Yeah.
They will never be able to do. They'll have monsters and creatures and they'll have space, sci-fi movies, all be floating around on planet Earth, all thanks to AI. But can they make a Saiyaara?
Yeah.
Can they move you emotionally and make you cry? Perhaps in animation, but like with human dramas like Saiyaara and several others, they can't. So it's never going to touch the genre that I love and adore. So this is just like my positive approach to it.
I'll absolutely take the hope. We have to talk about Coffee with Karan. You know, it is 84% of who I am as a person, but I don't know how else to say this. Take this as an...
Just 84.
Only
just
84, sorry. Yes, the other 16% is Honey Singh and Seemanti. But how do we fix it? Which is the most entitled fan thing I can say. It's because we're fans. You know, it used to be, I know you've talked about how stars don't want to be, you know, as outspoken anymore. It's become less conversation, more sort of games, which I get. It's very popular, so who cares what I think? But like, how do we fix it?
We can't.
Okay.
Can you fix social media?
Absolutely not.
Then how can we fix this? Can you control PR nightmares?
No. But you're still enjoying it.
Can you control? Well, I haven't done it now in 2.5 years. The thing is that it did become very challenging to make people speak up. Yeah. When I look at some of the first seasons, couple of seasons, I'm horrified at what I've asked.
Oh.
I'm horrified at myself. I'm like, how did I get away with this?
Yeah.
Like, why am I asking this question? How dare I'm so scared of myself. But I don't recognize that version of me.
It was a simpler time.
It was so easy and simple, and I was like feeling like we were literally in my own like drawing room, like having a chat, like where no cameras are rolling, and that's what it felt like in the first 3 seasons. Yeah. Then social media popped up, Twitter came, and Instagram came, and everyone is an opinion. And then of course everyone comes so worried, and like everybody, like I used to ask them anything I felt like. Of course, things that were always in the public domain. I never, if like say X, you were a close friend of mine and I knew a secret, I would never ask that because that was something that was between us. Yeah. But I would ask something that's already being discussed. Today you can't, like you have to ask them in rooms before, like can we talk about this? Can we not? They were like, okay, but if you ask me this and I will say this, then you say this, and I'm like, there goes the spontaneity.
Yeah.
So Coffee with Karan has to be a fun chat show now. It cannot be a window into their true personalities or into their real personal lives. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to tell you.
But the idea of keep doing it still excites you, still brings you joy.
Yeah. I enjoy it because I'm a curious mind. So I think that what I want to do with it is make it a little more. The thing is, I want to always make it a little more inquiring, like a lot more curiosity, like an interview like say we're doing right now, which is sometimes academic, sometimes serious. But the thing of Coffee with Karan is that you're playing with like a certain amount of frivolity, which people enjoy. It's that guilty pleasure viewing, it's sometimes cringy bingy, it's like whatever you may call it, like, but like you are not in it to hear anything serious, academic, and deeply emotional or moving.
Yeah.
You're not here for that.
Yeah.
You're here for a ride.
Yeah.
So now if you don't give them that ride, they're not going to enjoy. They'll tune out because they're like, oh, 1 minute, hey, this is boring. Why am I hearing about his emotions and feelings and I should hear about his
Who are
hookups?
you hooking up with?
Or his hookups. Like, I'm like, that is the problem. So the moment I'm trying to I'm trying to find that balance in my next season where I can actually be inspired as a talk show host to still engage an audience without invading somebody's privacy and yet making it engaging and entertaining. I don't know how I'm going to strike this balance. The endeavor will remain.
Challenge accepted. That sounds very promising. Just to conclude, the 18-year-old version of me would never let me live it down if I didn't attempt to do a rapid fire round with you.
Yes, why not?
But obviously this is a very sort of classy intellectual show, so this will be very sort of, fancy questions, nothing too frivolous. Film critics, rank in order of sex appeal.
That is great. I love this question. I've never been asked this question in my life. Do I really have a bunch?
I don't know if I have. If I'm joking, I'm serious. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, please. Yeah. I don't think I've met a sexy film critic.
Okay.
So ranking them in order.
Not even the raw animal sexuality of Paddy, Bardhan Rangan?
Bardhan Rangan is wonderful. Sexy, I'm not sure. He's wonderful. Academic, great. Love his mind. Sexy, I mean, his Hawaiian floral shirts are interesting, definitely. Some of them.
He's a trendsetter.
Yeah. In many ways.
I won't say any more because he'll murder me.
Yeah.
Okay, the funniest thing you've heard about yourself recently?
The funniest thing I've heard about myself recently.
Or read.
That I'm going to be endorsing Ozempic.
Wow.
That is why I've lost weight and now I'm bringing Ozempic into India.
Okay,
apparently.
like you're the official.
Apparently.
You might as well make money.
I mean, that whole billion-dollar industry, that whole pharma industry,
they need you.
That they apparently need me to bring it into India. Yeah. So that's the conspiracy theory why I lost weight. So I would bring Ozempic as their official ambassador.
One staff from one of the 4 vibrant industries in the South that you'd love to work with that you haven't yet?
I'd love to work with many. I love Kamal sir.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm a massive fan. I also love Ajit. Like, I think he's amazing. Like, I really think he has a magnetic personality. I think both, because of, my love for RRR, I think both Charan and Tarak are both amazing.
Yeah.
So these are some of the names. But let me tell you the directors I love.
Yes, please.
Rajamouli sir, I love Vangareddy.
Yeah.
I love.
I
love Lokesh.
Yes.
Love. These are the 4 filmmakers I absolutely love.
Lokesh.
And over and above, all of them, not over and above, because these are my fascinations and have remained and will remain, but my love story with the very first filmmaker from the South was Mani Ratnam.
Yeah.
That was where my love story began. I remember watching Tiruda at a cinema hall called Aurora. I went in the morning, I watched that film, and I know it wasn't considered one of his most commercial successful films, but I loved it. Then, of course, I saw everything else, everything else. So my love story began with Tamil cinema, and of course, the cinema in the South began with Mani sir.
Yeah. We will take that. The recent movie you saw that you wish you made or produced, you can't say Saiyaara, that's too obvious.
I never watch a film by feeling I should make it or produce it. But I loved Saiyaara.
Yeah.
Last year I loved Lapata Ladies.
Okay.
Loved Animal.
Yeah.
I know, I could get completely...
The amount of collective trolling in that scenario of you producing Animal, the internet would explode.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it.
Yeah. It's a very singular voice.
I loved it and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love Sandeep Vangareddy.
A film of yours as director or producer that you wish you could take another crack at?
Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna. I'd remove its scale and some of its set piece songs and make it more intimate.
Okay. The thing that confuses you most about Gen Z, what throws you the most about them?
The dichotomy, which we spoke about, like the fact that they could be this young, so connected to technology, be in such a generation of choices and yet be so individually, crazily, madly, obsessively in love.
Every time you try and put them in a box, they surprise you.
Yeah.
A film of yours that you're the happiest rewatching without focusing on the flaws or any of that?
I've never watched a film of mine again.
Never?
No, I cringe, I die, I want to run far away. I've never watched a film.
Okay, then as producer?
Kapoor and Sons.
I was going to say that. That was my answer as well. One young actor who's just starting out, whose future and career you're the most excited about?
Ahan and Aneet. Both.
If you didn't say that.
Yeah, I'm like Ahan and Aneet. Like rooting for them in a huge way.
Same question, but for filmmakers.
So I think I'm going to mention like two directors who I think have deeply moved me with their craft. Shazia Iqbal, who I think is very interesting and an exciting voice, and Nikhil Nagesh Bhatt, director of Kill. Both of them have impressed me very deeply with their craft, their understanding of emotion, and their ability to be connective as with an audience, but also somewhere strike themselves as individual voices.
Yeah. Same question, but for screenwriters.
You know whose work I'm missing? Actually, recently I can't think of there are many amazing writers whose work I'm missing and not watching enough of, and I want to see is Juhi Chaturvedi.
Yeah.
I want to see.
I agree.
I want to see a lot more of her because I love her work.
Yeah.
I've loved so many. Piku is one of my all-time favorite films.
Yeah.
So I'm really rooting to watch more of Juhi Chaturvedi.
Lastly, one thing you would change about the industry and how it functions today. I'll give you two.
My very first problem is punctuality.
Yeah.
I have a big problem with people who don't show up on time.
You're in the wrong industry.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong city. I want to tell you,
That's
I'm
true.
not. Like everyone's late here, and traffic is the big excuse.
Yeah.
I'm like, just leave early. Just leave early. Don't believe GPS and just leave early.
That's fair. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for the perspective. Thank you for the hope. And as always, very excited about everything that you have in store. And hopefully AI doesn't replace us and kill us all.
No. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Suchin. Thank you.
Before we go, a quick word on MUBI, your one-stop shop for meaningful cinema from around the globe. You can try MUBI for free for 30 days by visiting mubi.com/thestreamingshow2025. This week, I recommend you check out The Monk and the Gun. My favorite movies are the ones that offer a whole lot to love on the surface while saying a whole lot more beneath it. Pavo Choining Dorji's sparkling satire, The Monk and the Gun, is just that, and what a gentle, wonderfully wholesome surface it is. In 2006, after centuries of monarchy, Bhutan embraced democracy and had to contend with its first ever elections. Pavo's film is set against the backdrop of a mock election aimed at teaching the population about voting and choosing candidates. Amidst that, a monk is instructed to set out on a sacred mission whilst a greedy American gun collector is chasing a Civil War era gun that the monk has in his possession. What follows is an immensely enjoyable, crowd-pleasing comedy of errors set against the breathtaking beauty of Bhutan. The Monk and the Gun uses the language of a charming, huggable, deceptively simple comedy to offer a profound, poignant commentary on the price of modernization, the perils of power, and the ugliness of politics. In one of the most memorable scenes, an understandably irritated elderly woman comes up to an election official and says, "You're teaching us to be rude." You can watch The Monk and the Gun on MUBI.